Hello and welcome to Press TV's Top 5. A senior Iranian lawmaker says that Russia's use of a military airbase in western Iran is in line with a decision by the country's Supreme National Security Council. Al-Nusra confirmed that Russian warplanes have been using Iran's Noje airbase only to get refueled. He said the move is part of Iran's cooperation with Russia in combating terrorism. The Iranian lawmaker, however, rejected allegations that the facility has turned into a Russian airbase and said that Russian warplanes have not been deployed there either. Earlier on Wednesday, the Iranian Parliament Speaker Ali Larijani also said that Tehran had not provided Russia with a military base inside of the country. He said the establishment of any foreign military base is against the Constitution of the Islamic Republic. Meanwhile, Russia's foreign minister says that the use of an Iranian air base for conducting airstrikes on terrorist positions in Syria does not violate any UN Security Council resolution. Sergei Lavrov told reporters that Moscow has not supplied or sold any warplanes to Tehran. He said that Russia is only using Iranian facilities for its anti-terror operations in Syria. The remarks followed the U.S. accusations that Russia has been violating the UN Resolution 2231, which prohibits the sale of combat jets to Iran. Meanwhile, Russian military officials say that the airstrikes conducted from the Iranian air base have killed over 150 terrorists in Syria over the past 2 days. Tony Gosling is an investigative journalist who joins us from Bristol. So you have a situation where, on the one hand, this should be great news for the stated goal, which is to combat terrorism. Russia cutting down its airtime by 60%, using Iran to refuel and then going after the terrorists, of which in the past 2 days they've killed 150 of them. But then you have the West, and particularly the U.S., who is saying, well, this is against UN Security Council resolutions that prohibits the sale of fighter jets to Iran. It doesn't seem like they're even connecting this in the right way for them to show a justified rejection of the move that was made.
Well, the West's policy is to attempt to isolate everybody in the region, including Iran, including Russia, etc., and treat them as completely separate. They get very worried when people start getting together and actually really attacking ISIS, because I think what's going on here is we've had for quite a while now a big question: who's serious and who's not about attacking ISIS? The people that the Russians are attacking, the groups are ISIS, and also as well these groups which I would call kind of ISIS light. They started off calling themselves Al-Qaeda, then they changed their name to Al-Nusra. They've now changed their name again. Like a corporation that's got a bad name, it keeps changing its name. This is what they do. And Jabhat Fatah al-Sham is the latest name. The shorthand for it is Sham Liberation Front. And I think, in a way, in the English language, sham is the right word for what they're doing, because actually they are, in a way, just another part of US foreign policy to topple President Assad, a regime change tool. And they're being supplied through Turkey, as many people now know. What the Russians need to do is, and I think most people can see this now, is to close this border between Syria and Turkey. And as the United States has been not doing that, we have to look again to the Russians. Russia is leading the fight against ISIS. It's absolutely clear now. They are really a kind of de facto United Nations, and now they're using these bases in Iran. I think if the West really wants to show it's serious about fighting ISIS, why doesn't it allow the Russians to use bases in Turkey, Cyprus and Jordan too?
Well, why is it that the U.S. is so concerned? Is it the unstated fact that perhaps one of the reasons that they didn't share the positions of these so-called rebels is because they're afraid that their hand might be read? Because at this point, their rejection of this may allude to the fact that they're losing on the ground, and they don't want Russia to be targeting the terrorists, of which these so-called rebels are mixed in with them.
Well, you're right to say they're mixed in. ISIS and the Sham Liberation Front, they are actually exchanging personnel. There's evidence they're exchanging weapons, and they're trying to create this caliphate. Now, I think we need to be very, very careful, and anyone that was even considering joining ISIS should be very careful about looking at what kind of caliphate that is. It looks as if it's like something along the Saudi Arabian lines. Certainly, ISIS is a cult. You have to swear allegiance to Baghdadi. in order to join, and if you try and leave, you're likely to be executed. So this is not the kind of caliphate I think most Muslims around the world recognise as having any validity whatsoever. So these rebels are not really fighting ISIS. I think the evidence is pretty clear about that. The Americans, well, their attitude, I think, is we will say anything and do anything as long as we get our way. We're focused on regime change. That's all I think the US really cares about. And we're not getting these views. It's important to stress this again and again in the European or the United States or the North American media at all. The Iranian view, the Russian view, it seems, is almost completely frozen out because the elite here are just simply not interested in what Iranians and Russians think. And they're also becoming more and more obsessed with trying to control what their domestic populations think. So democracy is on its knees in this part of the world, and the people in charge are not only turning their wrath against the various regimes like Libya, etc., in the Middle East and Iraq, of course, they're also now beginning to turn them on the domestic population, which is very concerning for democracy.
Thank you for that. Tony Gosselin, investigative journalist there from Bristol.